Hi, Damian. How are you?
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. So to
Good.
start, I like that a lot of this movie is revenge driven because it is about trying to figure out what happened, but it's also a woman being like, I want to see how this guy, like
Yeah.
what he saw because he killed my sister kind of deal. When you are making a horror movie that does have that at its core, is that a challenge or is it an advantage to kind of already have that built into the story?
I guess re revenge is such a good arc in movies anyway that I think it did kind of it ended up becoming the center of this for sure. I mean, the idea is like the film is a bit of a mishmash of genres. There's
Hmm.
psychological, supernatural, and there's that threat of violence, even though a lot of it happens off camera. But ultimately, yeah, I always thought of it as a revenge film, as this character of Darcy just out to make these guys pay for for somebody that she was so connected with.
Yeah, and having it also about a family, I think helps a lot of it because a lot of movies, it's like, especially horror, it's like, oh, these group of friends, and so they're all like destined to betray each other because it's every man for themselves. But when you were working on it, was was it like I don't want to say helpful, but like having that family, how did that kind of all come together that it was going to be about a family unit?
I think it's because I was always aware, I suppose, that one, I'd be very conscious of just running time, just from strictly a practical entertainment point of view. That you just want the film to be short, so just a real quick way to connect those characters that don't even share screen time. That they're not even
Mhm.
together, but somehow you're trying to create this deep connection and this bond between them. It just felt like one, make them sisters because I'd be close with my sisters and my brother, and it's that seemed like a quick way that people would buy it, and then just again make them twins. That connection is even deeper again. That they've been together their whole lives, right from the very start. Yeah, it's just kind of from a storytelling point of view, it just seemed very useful to get the audience on board quickly with what she's trying to achieve.
Yeah, and also this movie's incredibly tense and unsettling when you're watching it, which I know a lot of that comes from the editing process, but how did you as a director try and like make sure that that came across so then when you guys were editing it, it was an easier process of making that kind of tone come across?
I guess well, one, it's the script, you're just trying to work it out yourself. So when it's just you on your own typing away, and the only audience you have is yourself. I mean, one, you're trying to see if you can scare yourself. If you're up late at night writing and you start, kind of looking over your shoulder, you know it's working. Then that's usually my first instinct. It's like, oh, this is okay. I'm starting to get kind of maybe I should turn on the light. So that's usually a good start. I'd storyboard everything then, so it's just you can kind of watch the film through just your basic panels and try to get a sense of the pacing. And then, as you say, yeah, it's once you get into the edit, and obviously the actors have to bring so much to it. They've got to sell this fear and connect with the audience, or make the audience really dislike them if that's their job. And then ultimately it just comes down to getting into the edit, and sometimes it's frames, taking out frames to make a scare work. Sound design is obviously hugely important. Um, yeah, it's all part of it.
Well, yeah, and is there anything, because like now what I really like about horror movies is they have to have a new level of intelligence to them because we've had so many throughout the years where we're like, that's not going to scare me. I can figure out like 8 leagues ahead. But was there anything that you kind of looked to kind of understand the approach that you wanted to make and then like, and either elevate it or make it even more frightening for a modern audience?
It is tricky because even myself, I mean, I watch stuff and I know where the scare is coming. It's gonna, here we go, 3, 2, 1, up it jumps. But it's great when it catches you out. Or
Mhm.
sometimes you'll learn a lot from scares that don't work. It's like, oh, they had me. I was so tense, I was starting to cover my eyes. I was waiting for the scare. So if they had just done this instead, it would have worked. Um, and I can't be the only one who watches films like that. I watch, my brother's an electrical engineer, and we get together every Wednesday night and we watch horror movies together. And he's as good at predicting stuff as I am. He goes, it's going to be there, or here we go now. But in a way, it's kind of weaponizing that against an audience as well, because if they think, oh, here we go, I know what's going to happen. And you can go, oh, do you? And then you can try to, you
Mhm.
can kind of try to pivot and try to catch them out. Try to make it very predictable what they think is going to happen, but then go the other way.
Does that make it fun for you as a filmmaker that you get to kind of now play that cat and mouse game with films because we are so kind of in tune to what happens in horror movies?
Oh, it is, yeah. I mean, it's tricky because even when we're in the edit, myself and Brian Philip Davies would be my editor. We love horror films, just huge, seen everything. So it's when you're watching the film that we know when it's working because like we'll be watching a scare will happen. We'd be like, yeah, that's not working. And then you'll really keep picking at it until it does, until you kind of feel like, oh, that's good. Then now it really works. But it's really fun then to watch. I mean, I went to South by Southwest in Texas and we watched it with the audience there. That was fantastic. I mean, it's like it's just the best feeling in the world because I mean you kind of barely watch the film. You're kind of looking at the crowds. You're seeing them and you're seeing them jump and all this, and it must be like being a I can imagine it'd be like being a stand-up comedian going up on stage with your material and you're
Mhm.
watching the audience react to, your jokes or whatever it is. It's got to be a similar feeling of getting that immediate response from an audience, which is great. Yeah, it's a really nice feeling.
Yeah, well, and now this is coming out in like oh, for some reason we're like horror movie summer this year
Yeah.
because it's like this Maxine, Long Legs, like all of these horror movies are all coming out in the middle of the summer. Do you think it's fun to kind of put a horror movie out into the world when people aren't like expecting horror movies? Because normally it's like, yeah, October there's gonna be like 20 horror movies we gotta go see.
Yeah. It's a funny one. I saw something the other night, somebody done video essay on YouTube just talking about uh, the kind of summer blockbuster and how Jaws started it and how Jaws
Mhm.
is a horror film and how that really kind of launched this idea of both a summer blockbuster but how it made horror films a lot of fun in the summer when people are off school and you got their holidays, this kind of
Mhm.
thing. So even though it does seem like it would make more sense to have it in a dark and rainy winter, but it seems to work in the summer for whatever reason. But what a summer for horror this year. I mean, Long Legs, I can't wait to see. And I loved Pearl and X and just waiting for Maxine now. Have you seen those yet?
Mhm. I've seen both of those.
Oh, oh wow. Any good? Do you like them?
Yeah, I like them both. But they were gonna make me ask you a question because you also have dark corners, and for some reason, all of these horror movies love a dark corner. And I
Oh,
think
okay.
that is our new kind of fear is like, well, no matter what, a dark corner is always gonna be scary because we never know what's behind or like in the dark. When you
Great.
are filming things that are darker and like you have those shadows, what is the challenge of making just a normal hallway that is pitch dark the most terrifying thing an audience can kind of see?
Uh, it's just trying to have that imagination and going with your gut feeling and just 40 years of watching, so many horror films and just going, yeah, this is starting to look right now. I mean, yeah, we do have a lot of ghosts standing in our corners in the movies. So yeah, it's just really keeping at it on it's never scary on the day, obviously, but you're working with the actors and you start to get that feeling of, oh yeah, I could imagine watching this. It's starting to look kind of off.
Yeah, I truly, for some reason, we've got a great lineup of just scary little corners. And they're terrifying to me. But
Great.
you are very clearly also a horror fan of like yourself. Do you remember that first horror movie that you watched where you were like, oh, this is a genre I really love and can like continue to kind of watch?
Oh God, yeah, there's loads. I mean, Evil Dead 2 was, I think, the reason I wanted to make films. Oh, like Hideo Nakata's Ringu, just that's hugely influential. I guess going back to when I was a child, maybe Ghost,
Mm.
Patrick Swayze movie, just because it kind of tricked me into that it was a horror film because you're watching along and it's kind of, there's, and I was like 9 or something, and you watch and go, yeah, it has its moments, and then it just takes this sharp turn in the third act where guys are getting dragged off to hell by these kind of ghost demons and they're wailing and screaming. Yeah, that was quite traumatic. I think that really stuck with me as like I didn't know this was a horror film, and it just yeah, that got under my skin for sure. Yeah, that's I mean it's not technically a horror film, but still that
I
those
like that.
moments in the third act
Yeah, I
really,
like
yeah,
that 9-year-old you was like, this is a horror movie.
Yeah, I did thought this was a, a romantic whatever. Suddenly there's shadow ghosts dragging Tony Goldwyn off to hell. So
I
yeah.
love it. And yeah, but thank you so much for making another great horror movie for this summer. I love all of these terrifying films. But thank you so much, and I can't wait for everyone to get to see Oddity.
Oh, great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
Bye.